Dallas cop Amber Guyger, who shot and killed Botham Jean in his own apartment, is out of a job today. She was fired by Dallas Police Chief Renee Hall, again, for adverse conduct when she was arrested for manslaughter. It seems it wasn't the shooting that got her fired, but something she did when she was arrested. Of course, the family has been calling for this, protesters as well. It's been a couple of weeks since Botham Jean was shot and killed in that apartment. Amber Guyger has given multiple stories as exactly what took place. Initially charged with manslaughter, the family has been pushing for her to be charged with murder. The grand jury has not been convened yet, even though Faith Johnson, the DA, says she certainly will consider that potential charge. Joining us right now from Dallas is Lee Merritt, who is the family attorney. Lee, glad to have you back on Roland Martin Unfiltered. The family, they've laid Botham Jean to rest in St. Lucia. And so certainly this has to be bittersweet for them to hear this news today.
Well, the Chief Hall went ahead and gave us a call last night, and she wanted the family to be the first to know. And so she explained to us her termination decision, and she had to face some questions from the family. Most importantly, the obvious one is what took so long. And she had a chance to break that down for the family. I want to make something clear really quickly. The statement that she released concerning the termination was just poorly worded, but she was not fired for additional behavior that took place during her arrest. She was terminated because of her behavior or her actions on September 6th while entering Mr. Jean's home. The statement meant to say, or was attempting to explain, that she was fired on the 9th as a result of her being arrested for those actions.
So, which is still sort of weird, because what were the exact actions that she took that led to her being fired? Was it entering his apartment? So is the police chief actually saying she entered the apartment?
Well, she was not very specific with what actions from September 6th. She just said, and I can't remember the particular phrase that she used, but the phrase that essentially meant something she did wrong on September the 6th. I can name a whole litany of things that went wrong on September the 6th. Namely, she murdered a man in his own home. But obviously she couldn't say that. But something about her behavior didn't comport with conduct coming of a police officer for the Dallas Police Department, in Chief Hall's view, and led to her termination.
And obviously, Lee, this is going to have an impact on when this goes to trial, because if she was fired for doing something wrong, the jury will get to hear that once they go to trial. If there's a
sure.
trial.
Now, at law, the prosecution can't introduce that evidence. It's considered a subsequent remedial measure that is inadmissible at the time of trial, both criminally and civilly under the federal rules of evidence. And so it doesn't technically come in. Everybody knows it, and they know it all around the world. And it certainly does have an impact on her appearance of guilt.
So, Lee, what is next? Has DA Faith Johnson given any indication when she is going to impanel a grand jury to come back with an indictment?
We know the investigation is ongoing. The Chief Hall alluded to the fact that a critical component of that investigation has been completed. I imagine that's as it relates to the investigation of Amber Guyger's statements and any follow-up that comes from that. Now, there's a tricky line that the chief had to toe, because any statement offered to her as a part of the employment decision are protected under the Fifth Amendment rights against self-incrimination. And so she couldn't allow those statements to impact the criminal investigation. So I can only conclude that the criminal investigation, as it relates to following up on the statements that she made to criminal investigators, has been completed. Therefore, she felt comfortable making the decision to fire her based on the criminal charges of assault that took place on September 9th.
All right. And Lee, also, I was chatting with you and Ben Crump earlier. You guys are planning a big rally this weekend in Dallas. Any details on what time and where that's going to be?
So it's going to be downtown on September 29th, which is this Saturday, which is also Botham Jean's birthday. We are still hammering out the details, which we will release tonight, about time and location. We know we want to center it downtown where the community can participate and both celebrate this young man's life and demand justice. from the powers that be. And so as soon as those details are available, of course, we're going to make them immediately available to you to share out. And we'll make them more available to the general public as well.
And of course, I'll actually be in Fort Worth, Dallas this weekend, speaking to the NAACP on Saturday, and we'll certainly see you at the rally on Saturday. Lee Merritt, we certainly appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
Thank you for having us.
All right, I want to bring in my panel right now. Michael Brown, former vice chair of the Democratic National Committee Finance Committee. Dr. Avis Jones-DeWeaver, leadership strategist and author of How Exceptional Black Women Lead. And Eugene Craig, CEO of the Eugene Craig Organization. Folks, glad to have you on the show. Clearly, folks have been saying she should have been fired. Many felt it should have happened last week, but this police chief, and certainly Renee Hall, has made the right decision because it made no sense for Amber Guyger still to be getting paid. Still to be, frankly, having the police department represent her, if you will, because that's what happened right after the shooting took place. She was being treated as if this took place while she was on duty.
Absolutely. I mean, nothing has gone the way that it should since the day that she walked into an apartment that was not hers and shot and killed the man that lived there. She was able to go home and sleep in her own bed for 3 days. You have had the police seemingly wanting to cast disparagement on his character by releasing information about marijuana being found in her apartment. Her apartment was never searched. So finally, it's good to see that something has gone in the right direction, and I'm hoping that that means that we're going to turn the corner in this case and actually receive justice for this young man.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you. I think, for the first time, we're actually going to see what it looks like to have a citizen versus citizen trial rather than a police versus citizen trial. The fact that the Dallas PD and the police union and folk down there were trying to protect her and went as far as to smear him and went as far as to disparage him. I mean, it's bananas. It's ridiculous. And I'm glad that she was fired. We shouldn't be giving officers paid vacations after they commit heinous crimes. And now it's up to the justice system to actually deliver justice to another citizen.
Absolutely.
It's interesting. It's interesting to see what's next. A regular Joe just walks up to a black person and shoots him.
Yeah.
I mean, that's kind of what's next.
Yeah.
And because we've seen everything, obviously, police on citizen shooting. We've seen citizen on citizen from Trayvon Martin. And so it's wondering how does it stop? And obviously, this kind of political environment we're in now, the leader is not saying, you know what? Stop it.
Absolutely.
And without a leader doing that, I think we may continue to see these kind of things roll.
Well, and also, again, I think what you have here is, and one of the reasons you even have this level of accountability is because of Black Lives Matter, because of protesters, the kind of pressure that's being applied on these police departments and then also on these district attorneys. What we're seeing is black folks who are saying to these even DAs, you don't do the right thing, we're going to throw you out of office.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So we're seeing more progressive district attorneys elected across the country because for too long, prosecutors have been in bed with the police department, in bed with the police unions, and not holding cops accountable for their actions.
Yeah, I mean, prosecutors for a very long time have been in bed with unequal justice. And now what you're seeing with citizens rising up, with Black Lives Matter, with Justice League, with a lot of these organizations, and ordinary citizens rising up. You're seeing the actual application of equal justice under the law, which means protecting their rights, but also equal application of justice when it comes to the actual criminality.